Welcome to an evolution of the Los Angeles Times. For our first step in the evolutionary development of the LA Times, we'll be looking at the first volume and number cover to ever be released, dating from December 4th, 1881. As you can see from the overview, the cover is divided into 7 columns, stretching the entire length of the page, all featuring very little spacing. Of all 7 columns, the first 3 and half of the 4th column are editorial and news-related content. The bottom half of the 4th and remaining columns are committed to advertising, splitting the entire cover roughly half editorial content and half ads. The editorial content featured on the front page is comprised of many different topics, the first being an economical overview of the surrounding areas. It promotes the supposed business boom occurring locally by listing the external factors that contribute to the growing prosperity. The story is lengthy and accounts for the first column, and half of the 3.5 allotted for the editorial work in general. The second article in the second column features a smaller-sized story about a steamship company running over a whale while at sea. Following, an even shorter story leads us to the last story, before the advertisements begin, a fourth of the way into the 4th column. Although the cover is primarily text-heavy, there are a few graphics scattered throughout the page, nothing extremely complex. As you can see, the advertisements are the only pieces of writing with a structured sense of spacing and variation in font. They also feature the occasional simplistic, yet smaller graphic. For example, a graphic of a duck, fish, wooden barrel, etc. The next cover we'll compare the previous page to is an LA Times cover from January 2nd, 1916. From first glance, you can notice many changes in the structure of this cover page, including a higher quality of titling, text alignment, variation in font, and advertisement density. Similarly, this page still holds the 7-column layout, yet the advertisement levels are decreased severely. Ads are now being replaced by flashier story intros and topic headers, news, and weather updates. These are solely located across the entire top 4th portion of all columns, ranging across the page from left to right. The page is still extremely text-heavy, and now instead of multiple smaller and simple graphics, the issue from 1916 only features one, more complex graphic that is intertwined with the newspaper's title, LA Times. There are detailed ships, a quite realistic eagle, and other full and thorough graphics that are symbolic to the American culture. Another new feature that can be found is the worldly news portion that was added. It is the only article blown up to cover 2 columns at once, giving off a sense of emphasis to read for the readers. Looking at our next LA Times cover from the November 3rd, 1947 edition, we continue to see a massive change in structure organization. Here, we can see the 7-column layout was abandoned and replaced by no specific pattern. While there are now 8 columns total, story titles crossing into other columns are normalized, as one story title regarding weather issues on the top of the page even stretches the last 4 columns of the cover. It is apparent an emphasis on aesthetics has now begun to mold the design for the paper, rather than the original text-heavy focused layout devoted to delivering nothing but news. Besides the Americanized Eagle logo incorporated onto the LA Times header on the cover, we begin to see large and specifically real photographic images located in the body of the cover. We begin to see a devotion to increased graphic space allotted to each image, and although only one on this page, they've dedicated about 3 columns and roughly a fourth of the page in length to the image. The image is of genuine environmental damage resulting from weather, which immediately diverts the reader's attention to the story at first glance of the cover. Lastly, we have a cover from the December 14th, 1975 Sunday morning LA Times edition, in which we see a much more modernized design layout. There are 6 columns within this page, and it is a clear priority that's been placed on the cleanliness within the paragraph division and spacing. All titles above stories have various fonts that are bigger and sharper, some written in sleeker text, some bolded, etc. A key thing to note is the major increase in the usage of images and graphics, as 4 rather large images are used on this cover page. The visual aspect of the cover now almost overshadows the editorial content, giving the paper the potential to look a lot more enticing to readers when first diving in. Approximately a little under half of this edition's cover of the LA Times is taken up by graphics and images, as well as creative fonts, which is completely opposite from our 1881 and 1916 editions of the LA Times.